Moving from fake skin to real skin is gonna be a huge transition. One exercise that I like to do is to put different things underneath the skin to try to simulate what it might be like tattooing over bone, tattooing over muscle that needs to be stretched out quite a bit in order to be stabilized. If you were doing a tattoo on a forearm here, this bit of skin is so much different here than it is to over here. And you're talking about a matter of inches. It's really not a big difference. So the thin skin that we're getting over the bone means that we're not aiming for less depth. We're still working just as deep into the skin as we are anywhere else. The difference is the sensation that we get underneath the skin. So if I was to poke this now, we can see how there's room for the skin to go somewhere. There's a little bit of give. Whereas if I was to put something really hard underneath, there isn't really anywhere for that skin to go, which means I don't have to put on as much pressure in order to tattoo that skin well. There's nowhere for it to go, so it doesn't require much pressure. Whereas if I was to tattoo over something like this and there's this weird dip in here, we're gonna experience that feeling in different parts of the body. So because we're going to tattoo the skin, as we begin tattooing the skin, we can see that the skin moves away from us. So it's gonna be a different experience than this part, which isn't going anywhere. So again, we're trying to reach the same depth, but the technique that we need to tattoo each part is gonna be quite different. For the part that's gonna get away from me, I might need to stretch out and stabilize it enough so that I can tattoo it clean without the skin really moving away from me. This is a lot more delicate and fragile with some bone underneath it. So you might feel like you want to take your time. You don't want to put on as much pressure because you're not chasing the skin. If you want to take your time, you might think about slowing your hand speed, slowing your voltage to allow yourself more time in the skin. If the skin is stretchy enough to get away from us, then it means that it's stretchy enough to bounce up and down as we're tattooing it. And if it's bouncing up and down, then it's not going to be controlled enough for us to have a consistent depth in the skin. If this is moving up and down as I'm tattooing it, I'm never going to have the chance to keep my needle depth consistent. It's always going to be changing, and it's going to get me a line that isn't clean. It's going to get me a line that is thinner in some parts and thicker in others. So be careful of overstretching. Overstretching is definitely a thing. We just need to stretch enough to stabilize the skin to stop it from really bouncing around. If you ever feel like you want to put on more pressure to make a solid line, it's very possible that you haven't stretched the skin enough, you haven't stabilized the skin enough to put in a clean line, or it's possible that your voltage is too low and not working efficiently enough to tattoo the skin. The easier areas would be the inside of the forearm, the outside of the forearm. Something similar would be like the back of the calf, the side of the calf on our leg. And then more difficult areas, thinner skin, the top of the hand, bone, not much muscle, tissue underneath, in between the skin and bone. Exactly the same for the wrist, the elbow, maybe parts of the spine, the shin, the foot. All of these different areas have very similar setups in terms of how thin the skin is and how much bone or muscle is underneath. So use different objects underneath your skin and try to be as awkward as possible, because you are going to have awkward situations when you're tattooing skin. All of these different changes, you know, tattooing over this solid bit where the scissors are, and then all of a sudden there's this big gap that sinks in because of the hole in the handle of the scissors. You're very well going to tattoo areas like this on a body. So simulate working on a body like this. As you're moving around, be very vigilant and aware of your depth in the skin as you move over that bone and then come back into the muscly area that needs to be stabilized nicely. Try to really be conscious of your needle depth, your pressure, and your motion as you're going through all of these different areas, and constantly trying to adjust so that the finished result of the line is always the same, even when you're working on different textures of skin.